Imagine waking up 150,000 years ago somewhere in Africa. There are no cities, no roads, no houses, and one thing that never crosses your mind is getting dressed. Clothing simply isn't part of life yet. Fast forward to today, and leaving home without clothes isn't just unusual, it's illegal in many places. We've built entire industries around fashion, spend billions every year on what we wear, and use clothing to express who we are. So, how did we get from wearing nothing at all to filling closets with outfits? The surprising truth is that scientists still don't know the exact moment humans began wearing clothes. But they have uncovered clues from one of the most unexpected sources imaginable: lice. Before we get there, we need to understand something even stranger. Unlike almost every large mammal, humans have very little body hair. Think about it. Bears, wolves, chimpanzees, horses, and lions all carry natural coats wherever they go. We don't. Why would evolution take away something that seems so useful? The leading explanation is heat. As our ancestors left dense forests and began hunting across open grasslands, running long distances became essential for survival. Thick fur trapped too much heat, making endurance hunting far more difficult. Instead of relying on fur, humans evolved something even more effective for staying cool: millions of sweat glands. Our bodies became incredibly efficient at releasing heat, allowing us to travel farther and hunt longer than many other animals. It was a huge advantage in hot climates. But it came with a problem. A body designed to stay cool under the African sun isn't very good at surviving freezing temperatures. Eventually, our ancestors would need another solution. Most people assume that's when clothing appeared. The story sounds simple. Humans moved into colder regions, felt cold, wrapped themselves in animal hides, and solved the problem. Except the evidence doesn't fully support that idea. Studies suggest humans may have started wearing clothing somewhere between 100,000 and 170,000 years ago. But large migrations out of Africa didn't happen until much later. If people were already wearing clothes before reaching colder environments, then warmth couldn't have been the original reason. So what changed? This is where the story takes an unexpected turn. Scientists studying human parasites noticed something fascinating. Humans have two different kinds of lice. Head lice spend their entire lives in hair. Body lice, however, survive almost exclusively inside clothing, especially in seams and folds of fabric. Here's the important part: body lice evolved from head lice. That means body lice couldn't exist until humans were wearing clothes regularly enough to create a brand new habitat for them. By comparing their DNA, researchers estimated that this split happened between roughly 83,000 and 170,000 years ago. Think about what that means. A tiny parasite accidentally preserved one of the earliest timelines for human clothing. Long before written history, before farming, before cities, and before metal tools, these insects quietly recorded the moment humans began covering their bodies. As strange as it sounds, lice became one of archaeology's most unexpected witnesses. But if early humans weren't dressing primarily for warmth, why were they doing it at all? The answer reveals that clothing was about much more than simply staying comfortable. The answer probably wasn't a single reason. Early clothing most likely solved several problems at once, and warmth may not have been the first of them. Imagine spending every day crossing open grasslands filled with thorny bushes, sharp rocks, biting insects, and the blazing African sun. Even a simple piece of animal hide draped over the body could protect the skin from cuts, burns, and constant irritation. It wasn't fashionable, it was practical. But humans have never been a species that stops at practical. Long before there was solid evidence for clothing, our ancestors were already decorating themselves. Archaeologists have found traces of red ochre pigments dating back more than 200,000 years, showing that early humans intentionally painted their bodies. That tells us something remarkable. The desire to change our appearance existed before clothing became common. Once people started wrapping themselves in animal hides, those hides likely became another way to communicate. A rare animal skin might have shown hunting skill. A carefully prepared hide could have represented experience or respect within the group. Even the way it was worn may have carried meaning. Without realizing it, humans had taken the first steps toward fashion. Not the fashion we know today, but the idea that what you wear can tell other people something about you. Then came one of the biggest breakthroughs in human history: Around 50,000 years ago, people stopped simply wrapping hides around their bodies and began sewing them together. Archaeologists have discovered finely crafted bone needles with tiny eyes designed for threading fibers or animal sinew. These weren't rough tools made in a hurry. They required planning, precision, and incredible craftsmanship. With a needle, clothing could finally be shaped to fit the human body. Loose animal skins became fitted garments. Open gaps that leaked heat could be stitched closed. Clothes became stronger, more comfortable, and dramatically better at protecting people from harsh environments. It may sound like a small invention, but it changed where humans could live. As groups slowly expanded into colder regions, properly stitched clothing became essential. A well-made garment trapped warm air close to the body and protected the areas where heat escaped most quickly. That changes the way we think about the story. Perhaps clothing wasn't an invention unique to Homo sapiens. Maybe any intelligent, highly social species forced to survive in challenging environments would eventually arrive at the same solution: cover the body, improve the design, then slowly turn necessity into identity. And once that happened, clothing stopped being just another survival tool. It became part of what made us human. As thousands of years passed, that simple idea would grow into something far bigger than anyone could have imagined. That transformation didn't happen overnight. As humans gradually spread beyond Africa into colder and more unpredictable environments, clothing became far more than a simple covering. It became one of the greatest survival technologies our species had ever created. Ice ages brought freezing temperatures, stronger winds, and landscapes that were impossible to survive in without protection. Groups that knew how to prepare hides, stitch garments together, and layer clothing had a major advantage over those that didn't. The difference wasn't just comfort, it was survival. Every generation passed these skills to the next, allowing humans to move farther north, cross mountain ranges, and settle regions that would have been deadly without proper clothing. But while clothing helped people survive, it was also beginning to change in another way. At some point, humans started experimenting with plant fibers instead of relying only on animal hides. They twisted fibers into thread, wove them into fabric, and eventually learned how to create lighter, more flexible clothing. Archaeologists have even found ancient fibers that were intentionally dyed different colors. That small detail is incredibly revealing. Nobody needs colorful clothing to stay alive. The moment people cared about color, appearance, and design, clothing had become something much bigger than protection. It had become expression. As farming spread and permanent settlements appeared, textile making became one of humanity's most important skills. Communities began producing linen, wool, cotton, and eventually silk, with each region developing materials that suited its climate and resources. For the first time, people owned different clothes for different occasions. Some were made for work, others for ceremonies. Some showed wealth. Others represented religion, leadership, or family traditions. Clothing had become a language without words. You could understand something about a person simply by looking at what they wore. That idea still shapes our lives today. A police officer, a doctor, a judge, a soldier, you recognize them instantly because of their clothing. Even outside uniforms, the clothes people choose often communicate personality, culture, profession, or beliefs before they ever speak. No other species does this in quite the same way. Animals may grow colorful feathers or thick fur through evolution, but they don't wake up each morning deciding what image they want to present to the world. Humans do. They connect you to people who lived more than 100,000 years ago. People who never imagined modern cities, global fashion brands, or online shopping, yet made the first decision to cover their bodies for reasons that slowly changed human history. Every morning when you decide what to wear, you're continuing a tradition that has lasted for thousands of generations. It began with survival, it evolved into communication, and today it's one of the clearest expressions of who we are. So here's something to think about. If humans had never started wearing clothes, would civilization have developed the way it did, or would history have taken a completely different path? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you enjoyed uncovering the hidden stories behind everyday life, don't forget to subscribe. There are plenty more fascinating journeys into our past waiting to be explored.